All right, and
Okay,
now we
so
are recording. So again, we are so excited that you guys are here. I'm gonna have Sharon kick it off.
all right. Well, thank you for joining us in our first official mini-series launch. This is the first of 5 sessions that we felt would be topics that would be relevant and meaningful for you in this time while we are dealing with COVID, and hopefully there'll be a lot of residual support afterward from what you learn from this regardless. And just want to do a few housekeeping tips and then we'll jump into our introductions. The goal of this Zoom today is to get you more familiar. You're all on Zoom right now, so obviously you know how to work it, but we want to get you a little more familiar with it. If there are things that might be interesting to you, we want to kind of go over the basic tips of etiquette. I think we're learning that there's a professional side to Zoom and there's a personal side to Zoom, and we want to make sure that we address how to, best practices for both. We also want to talk a little bit about Zoom safety. Zoom has been really responsive in some of the issues that have come up early on, since everyone in the world seems to be using Zoom at the same time, and we want to share that information. And I just want to reiterate what Stacey said, because this is the biggest part of this presentation. You will be receiving an email after this with not only the video of this session that we're going to do, but with different slides. And the slides are going to literally be how to do all the things we're saying in a play-by-play fashion. So it'll say, click this, do this. So you don't have to take notes or worry that you're missing something or worry if we go too fast. All of the instructions and the really detailed way to do that is going to come to you afterwards, so you can sit back and enjoy just listening and trying to learn from a visual sense. So and then as Stacey said, we're going to hold the questions for the end. And so we're not really going to be looking at the chat while we're doing this. So just to be aware, if you reach out to us via chat, we're going to respond to question time. So without further ado, in case any of you don't know, my name is Sharon Sitchi. My title is Chief Strategy Officer at Main Street, and my role is development and partnerships and fundraising. And I've actually been doing a lot more programming in this recent time. And I'm just really excited to be here and be a part of this. Stace, do you want to give a little?
Yeah, I'm Stacey. I am the Director of Membership and Volunteers at Main Street, and I'm tasked with helping us come up with our membership model, which is ever changing as we experience the world as it is now. And also, I really see my role as helping everybody to find a place at Main Street, whether that's as a member or a volunteer or both. So yeah, and also working on programming, which is super fun, and it's been a really good time, right?
Yeah, we are learning a ton, and we're finding that there are a lot of positives out of this this new world that we're living in. And that brings me to the objectives that we have for today, which, as I mentioned earlier, we want you to all feel comfortable really using a lot of the aspects of Zoom, since what we're finding is that even when we get back to life as we used to know it, where we do things in person, there's a lot of value to having these opportunities to do things online. So we're definitely going to keep this as part of our membership offerings. And as a result of that, we want to make sure you really feel comfortable in this new format of being connected. And as we said, also learning about the resources. And so this is kind of obvious, but sometimes I feel like before you start anything new, you should really kind of know exactly what the platform is that we're using. And so Zoom is a cloud-based video conferencing platform, which means that it's not just a software on your computer. It's kind of living and breathing out in the cloud world where we have data held, and it can be used for all kinds of ways to communicate with one another. So meetings and social things, and give you opportunities to kind of use multifaceted connecting. So we can use the chat, which we're going to learn how to do. Some of you don't know, and we can also talk with one another. Stace, you want to
Yeah.
move on, please?
Click the button while I also turn my page.
Awesome, thank you.
There we go, yes.
Okay, so what will I learn? We just discussed that, and we thought we'd start off with how to present my best self. And so part of that is really just getting to know your Zoom. It's kind of like getting to know your smartphone or learning how to drive. Once you do, you know, you get much more comfortable, and it's easier to kind of navigate. So part of it is just being comfortable. I know that sounds silly, but when you're confident and comfortable. So when you're speaking and when you're talking, you know, to other people, you want to kind of have that presence when you're communicating, because the only thing that people have to connect with you aside from your voice is what they're seeing. So we really want to kind of put that out there. When you're on a social or you know, more a friend-based Zoom call, you know, I think it's a great way and a great time for you to be more casual, not only in your appearance, but also, you know, maybe with your background. We're going to talk in a little bit about changing your Zoom backgrounds. And then there's times when you're, you know, when you're doing something professional, you really want to think about what would you do if you were in person. So if you were, I think one of the questions that we had when we sent out the signing up for this session was, someone asked about interviewing on Zoom. There's a lot of new things we're doing on Zoom. So really just think of this as whatever you would do in person, using your, you know, clarity when you speak, and looking at the camera. And if you're talking to someone in a social experience, it's okay to look at them, so you're not really kind of looking directly ahead. But, you know, if you're looking and speaking to someone directly, if you're presenting something, if it's a professional situation, you want to kind of have that presence and look ahead. Dressed appropriately, like, you know, we kind of talked about the way that you would if you were in person somewhere. Sitting in front of a window, so a lot of people like the natural light, but you really, it's very distracting sometimes. So try to put your whether it's an iPad or your computer or even your phone in a place where you kind of have the you're away from a window, so you don't have that distraction. And we thought that this would be an interesting thing to talk about. Oh, and also before I go any further, I want to show you the difference between, right now you see, you want to have like an equal headspace around you when you're speaking. So when I have my, I'm going to move it right now. Right now, I just moved my computer on my desk. And so I'm like kind of taking up more of the space. And then I literally just went into my drawer and found this little box that holds my steak knives. And when I put it over on the box, it kind of changes how you see me. And so you want to kind of frame yourself in the space so that you have that equal space around you. Sometimes people also feel like you see a lot of people on TV now when you see them presenting, they even put a little light. So if it's super dark in your room, you can have a little light shining on you. And that just gives you an opportunity to kind of present your best self as well. So I'm just gonna run through a couple of these other things. Another thing, and again, between social and professional, these are kind of both the same. Like if you're talking with somebody, you don't wanna always be checking your phone or kind of distracted. It's the same, people seem to think sometimes when they're on Zoom that they aren't, they can kind of do whatever they want because you're not in person. And then I don't know if any of you have heard some of these crazy stories about people that like go to the bathroom while the Zoom is on, or maybe they're not wearing, you know, they're wearing their pajamas because they think no one can see. We really want to kind of think about this as just think about what you would do in person and do the same things.
Sharon, do you want me to put the smile slide on?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I kind of jumped into that. I appreciate that.
Okay, no, you're
So I talked about distractions of your phone, and also with that, it's also like multitasking. You don't want to kind of try and do too many things while you're talking. Talked about presenting the camera in a way that is spaced. So, you know, I'm doing the same thing. I'm almost modeling what not to do because I have my presenter notes in a different slide. But like I spoke about, I think you can just think of it like smile. You want to put forth that positive energy. You want to be confident, be positive, you know, and also, and I want to make just do one more anecdote about that. I was doing a Zoom book club with a bunch of my friends, and we're all friends, so it was casual. And someone was laying on her bed and was laying down during the Zoom. And it was really kind of distracting a little bit, you know, to have that, you know, in this where we're all kind of sitting there. And so it seems like a silly thing to say because, you know, you want to be comfortable when you're talking to people. But because this was a book group and there was like 15 of us, it's one thing if you're just talking to a one-on-one friend. So think about your audience and think about who's on the Zoom with you and think about how you present yourself. Like I said, speak clearly, same, the in-person or on the video, loud and clear. Okay, so I got through, I think I really way overdid my explanation of that, so sorry about that, but we can go to the next slide there, Stace.
To mute or not to mute, we were talking about. Do you want to cover this?
Yeah.
Me too.
So I'm just going to do the overview, and then Stacey's going to do the technical stuff because she's much more savvy than me. By the way, you have to know your strengths on Zoom. So we talked about professional and casual, and it's the same thing. If you're in a professional environment with someone from work or something that is a little more formal, you want to, you know, kind of think about all the things that you're doing on this Zoom. So if you have people in your family and you know that someone's going to be around and this is something where you don't want to be distracted, like don't be in that environment. So when I'm on something important for work, I make sure that my 3 children and my husband and my dog are not going back and forth a million times while I'm on my important Zoom. And then Stacey's going to talk about all the functionality that we do in order to keep that professional or personal thing going so you're not interrupting people. So Stacey, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. And that can be so hard when you're on a video call to understand kind of where the break in conversations are, because you can't really read body language the way that you would in person. And sometimes you just can't tell if a person is thinking or looking at their notes. And so we want to try and be mindful of that. But also Zoom has created some great features that I'll talk about in just a minute to help us kind of navigate those situations. Those are the ability to raise your hand, the opportunity to chat, and the opportunity to use reactions like clapping your hands or using thumbs up to show support. So I'm going to talk about those a little bit more in depth in a moment, but I want to give us an opportunity to kind of get to know our Zooms. And this actually, you can be a little, like, I want you to listen. But if you're finding that maybe one of the tips that I'm going to present applies to you or you want to try it out, you can also give it a shot. I don't know if you guys know, but a lot of time when we log into Zoom, if we're using a shared computer and you are clicking a link directly from an email, instead of opening the Zoom application and typing in a meeting ID and password, you could potentially be logging in as whoever the last person was that used that Zoom. And so what we often find when that happens is that the name that shows up under your picture is not your name. It's whoever was using it before. I see a majority of the people who are with us today, it shows the correct name, but mine doesn't. My name isn't Main Street Connect. So what I can do is I can go to the menu on my screen. It's at the bottom and it says participants, and it has a little image of 2 people, and it also shows the number of people who are in this meeting. I can click on that and a window will open and everybody's name will be there. I can find my own name and click on a blue button that says more, and I can rename myself. And I'm going to do this in real time right now so that you can see that my name has changed from Main Street to Connect to Stacey Watson. Sharon, did you want to share something?
I did, and I used my
your hand raising function. I appreciate it. And now I can lower your hand. Oops, hold on 1 second, Sharon. I've unmuted you, but you need, go ahead.
Got it. So I just wanted to do the quick starter thing. Some of you may or may not realize that when you hover, use your cursor to hover. That's where you can, sometimes the menu bar goes away. So if you hover on the bottom, sometimes you know, it pops up again. And then you can also hover over someone's square, and that's when the names pop up, because sometimes they go away. So I just wanted to kind of make that note in case that wasn't obvious to some people. But go ahead, Stace.
No, thank you so much. We were just talking about how you can change your backgrounds. You can do that before a meeting starts by going into the Zoom application that's on your computer, and changing the settings. There's a little cogwheel image, which will show you how to find that in a little bit. But if you're already in a meeting and you hover over that menu bar that Sharon was just talking about, there's an icon of a camera and an arrow next to it. And you can choose a virtual background and play with your video settings. So one of the video settings that you can do is you can mirror your video, and I'm gonna flip, if you see. So that's one of the options that you can do. You can also apparently touch up your appearance. It's like a little blur filter, which is really, really cool. And there are even more settings that I encourage you to take some time and play with. You can have your own free Zoom account that you can go in and get familiar with. We also talked a little bit about the virtual backgrounds. You have to upload those yourselves, and it's not available on every version, especially if you're using a Chromebook or a mobile device. But right now I should appear in the Main Street like big social room, which is really cool. I'm going to turn it off. Oops. None. And come back to you guys. So I really want to encourage you to take some of your own time to open up your Zoom account and go play with your settings and become familiar with them and learn how they work. Another thing that we were just talking about, the participants bar, and it gives you the option to communicate with the presenter as well, by clicking yes or no. Like I could ask a question and I could ask you to respond yes or no. There's a little green check mark. Yep, Sharon has got it. Great. If anybody wants to go ahead and click that, I see a lot of you are testing that out. That's great. You can also click the no button. You can communicate with the presenter to go slower or to go faster. There's a coffee cups that says I need a break. And that's also where you'll find the clap button, these are all great ways to communicate with your presenter without interrupting the presentation. We also talked a little bit about the chat feature. On my menu, there is a little image that has 3 little dots at the bottom that says more, and that's where chat is for me.
It should be on most people's menu bar. If you hover at the bottom, it should just be there. First it's mute, then stop video, then participants, and then chat.
That's awesome. So if you are presenting, and it's your Zoom account that everybody has joined into, you have the most control of the meeting, and you can change those settings if you go into your Zoom account. You'll also have the opportunity to do like what I did, and you can mute all participants, which helps to make sure that things can go smoothly and eliminates a lot of the background noise. Sometimes things like echo and things like that. So it can be really helpful. So just a moment. What else did I want to point out? Screen sharing, which I'm doing right now, which is a really cool thing. But the biggest thing that I want to point out to you about screen sharing is that as participants in this Zoom, you may have noticed that as I'm sharing my screen, instead of having all of the pictures of people in one big Brady Bunch block, you should see all the participants kind of in like a bar on the side. Depending, sometimes it shows up across, but you have the opportunity to change where that is. On some screens, you can even drag that little section of photos so that you can see different things on your screen. A lot of people don't know that you can do that. You can change this little active speaker panel, I guess. You can change it to show a lot of different people. You can change it to show no people. And I think it's really cool, a cool feature if you want to play with that and see what is the most comfortable for you, because there really is no right or wrong way to do that. That's really just about your preference as a participant. So that is the big thing that I wanted to point out about screen sharing. Yeah, Sharon.
So I was just going to say that this is a little more advanced, but this is a fun trick if you ever need to present for some, I mean, I guess you could do it, it doesn't have to be professional, but when you click on share screen, the options that come up, there are 3 different options that come up, and the first one is partial screen. I don't know, Stace, if you'll be able to show that, because I think we tested this before and I don't think we can show while you're presenting.
Mm-hmm.
But if you click that partial screen and then you click OK, there is a box that pops up. You can hover that box over what you want to present. So right now, Stacey is presenting from, you can present from things and you can still have the rest of the screen be what you want to see and only show what's in that box. So all we'll see is what's in that box. And that's very helpful if you're doing a presentation, for example, and you want to be able to kind of still see what's around you. So that's just a little tip that I learned early on that was incredibly helpful and doesn't show all the behind the scenes kind of toggling back and forth.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, all the more reason for you to take some time and, you know, play with your Zoom account. I am going to share actually my browser. At least I thought I was going to. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment because I do want to. This is what I want to show. I want to show you guys how awesome Zoom is and how they have prepared an amazing support page, and I want to show you how to get there. So you should see on your screen right now that I have Chrome, my Chrome browser open to zoom.us. I am currently logged into my account, but I don't think you need to be logged into an account to find this page. In the top right-hand corner, on the black menu bar with white writing, there is a button that says support. And they have a bunch of topics all laid out. If you don't know exactly what it is that you need help with, you can just type it into the search bar and it will come up with a whole bunch of fantastic articles. And you can click on them and they have a great outline. They have screenshots, and some of them even have like little video tutorials on how to use things. So I wanted to point that out to you guys. We'll send a link to this directly that you could bookmark if you think that that would be helpful. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, I am gonna go ahead and get back to the presentation. Thank you guys. All right, so as a presenter, you do have an opportunity with Zoom to kind of control the participants like we were speaking about in terms of muting. If there's somebody who's really disruptive and they're just not responding to you asking them to kind of, you know, get with the program for lack of a better word, you can actually control that and you can make it so that that participant can no longer access the meeting so that they're no longer disruptive. But again, I would encourage you to explore that in your own time, but let you know that that option is available to you. Sharon.
You know what, before we continue,
You
I
okay?
think we didn't, yeah, sorry, I'm choking.
Oh, I forgot
Try
this.
not to choke. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The Zoom safety.
I was on the safety page and then I just missed it. I'm so sorry. We'll back it up. And look, we're all human. These things happen. Like it's never going to go perfect. So, you know, you got to just relax a little bit. But yeah, so there have been a lot of conversations about safety and security on Zoom. People doing these things called Zoom bombings, where they like type in random meeting IDs and they just pop into your Zoom as an uninvited guest, which can be quite unpleasant. So Zoom actually does have some safety mechanisms in place. Sharon, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's called Zoom bombing, but they don't hurt you. They just say like inappropriate things or, you know, lewd things that you don't want invading your Zoom, but they're not
like hecklers.
They're going to hurt you. Exactly.
Yeah, like hecklers. Thank you for pointing that out. So you have the ability to use password protection when you set up your Zoom meetings, which we really do encourage you to use. When you send out an invitation, which we're not going to talk so much about today, but we will give you the resources to learn how to do that. But when you set it up, you can make it password protected, and you can have Zoom assign a random password, or you can change it to be something that works for you. Like if you've participated in our game days, you know that like our passwords have had to do with our game days, without giving up too much information for security purposes. But so you can have a password protected. You can also lock your meeting and prevent other people from joining. I did not turn that feature on today in case we had people join us late. But using that lock it up feature so that nobody else can come in can really help make sure that you are in a safe space with people that you know and trust, and have your meeting the way it was intended. Sharon, did I miss anything? Did I add
No,
anything?
I think that's great. And we really just tried to make this a high level overview of like the hot topics that we thought people would be using most often. But there is a plethora of information that we have shared with you and what we're going to follow up. And then this page here that Stacey just posted is where we got a lot of the information that we used to drive this presentation today. So there are things on just the getting to know Zoom, and then underneath the cyber safety. And those are really robust resources. So feel free to take your time to go through those. And then, like we said, everything that we talked about today, muting and unmuting, changing your background, raising your hand, using the settings, all of that is in a literally play-by-play example that you will get in the follow-up. So we tried not to spend too much time in the playing around with it now, because we feel like everyone's going to need their own time for that. But the big takeaways from today were, even though Zoom will never replace being in person, Stacey, I don't know if you want to go to that very last slide, by the way, while I'm talking about this. But our number one, put your best self forward. Think about how your computer or your screen is positioned. Good lighting.
When do you want me to go to? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were there. Just that last.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I just.
It's okay.
Talking there. And just kind of putting your best self forward, thinking about how you look in the screen so that people, and that how focused you are on your talking and not being distracted. And then we talked about all the how-tos, and we talked about how to be safe, and we'd love your feedback. So there's a little evaluation question in your email follow-up. We'd love for you to tell us what you thought, and if you'd like to know more about something else. And then now we are ready for our questions.
Okay, I want to just refer to the chat really quick, because there was a great question on here from Island. Thank you for asking. Does Zoom hang up automatically after 40 minutes during virtual events?
Oh, and the question is not, and for a period of time now, they've removed that feature for free. If you have a free version, I've been told that you can now talk for as long as you want, but if they might turn that feature back on when we come out of COVID. But great question, Island, because that was a big thing with the free version before.
Jonathan is sharing that he feels comfortable on Zoom. That's great. So maybe Jonathan, if people have questions, we can send them to you.
Yeah. And also John Bagaski, thank you for that. He also added, I noticed, that you can use the Alt key to toggle the menu, and that mirroring your video only affects how you see yourself, which is true, because Stacey, when you did that, we did not
really?
mirror.
Really
yeah. So that was very good. And Odana and Yelena says, I can't use the virtual background as my Mac computer system does not meet the requirements. And that is a really good point. I think Stacey touched on that, but thank you, Odana. Not all versions, not all computers, and not all Zoom versions give you the ability to do that. And John is giving more information that Alt key works for Windows may be different on mobile platforms and Mac. So, So the big takeaways here from these comments are that unfortunately it is not universal with Zoom. It depends on the platform that you are using. It depends on your computer, or the version you are using. It depends on your computer. And oh, the space bar to talk is another great participant feature. Well, I did not know that. So John, thank you for teaching us. This is why this is a collaborative.
Yeah, and John, if you want to share with Sharon and I kind of where you may be finding this information, if it's in one place or if it's just tips that you've learned along the way, we would love to know about that. So the space bar to talk, does that mean you're requesting to be unmuted? I'm going to unmute John for just a moment, because if that's okay with you, John. Should I call you Big John, smiley face?
Well,
All right, so John, you're unmuted. Please go ahead and share with us.
it became Big John when you were showing
I
out how to rename it. So the space bar to talk is good when you have a lot of people in a meeting. And so everybody can mute themselves, and then whenever they want to talk, just hold the space bar down. Let go. So it's a good etiquette thing when you're in a large group to have everybody be on mute, and when they want to talk, they press the space bar, and that eliminates the shuffling around kinds of noises when people are bouncing things on the table or what have you. So that's a really good, sort of asking people to mute themselves and use the space bar to talk when they're in a meeting. You can there's also some other alt things. Alt A toggles the mute. So space bar to talk, you have to hold it on, but Alt A for alt audio turns it on. Turns it
So
off.
I have a Mac, John, and I don't see alt on my.
No, it might be that I think it's a different key on the Mac. The Mac doesn't have an alt key. It might be that curly Q button. I think I've seen that. I don't really know Macs, but there might be a
Oh,
similar.
I see it. I see it. It's small. It's under option if anyone has a Mac.
Thank you, Eileen. Oh, great. So John, are these just tips you picked up along the way, or did you find these in a particular resource?
No, I mean, some of them I found in the help system. One of them I learned today watching this thing. And that's where I found the alt. I was poking around in the help system while you were talking, and I found the alt to bring up the menu.
That is awesome.
And
So I am actually I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop our recording right now and kind of bring us back together. I'm not seeing any new questions pop up in the chat. So give me a moment to stop the recording, and I'm fingers crossed that